For 27 years, Sonia Curry kept a secret that not even Steph knew. A secret about silent sacrifices, impossible decisions, and the real price she paid to transform her son into a basketball legend. When she finally decided to tell the truth, Steph's reaction was so moving that it touched hearts around the world. The rain beat persistently against the windows of the house in Charlotte, North Carolina, that March morning in 2024. Sonia Curry, at 58 years old, held a still steaming cup of coffee while watching the drops slide down the glass. Her brown eyes, which had so often seen Steph shine on courts around the world, now carried the weight of a secret kept for 27 long years. "Maybe it's time," she murmured to herself, feeling her heart race just at the thought. The house was silent, but the memories screamed. She closed her eyes and transported herself to 1997, when she was only 31 years old and pregnant with Sidel, her third daughter. Dell was constantly traveling with the NBA, and she found herself alone most of the time, raising Steph, then 9 years old, and Seth, 7. These were the most difficult years of the marriage, though no one knew it. At that time, even with Dell playing professionally, the Curry family faced a reality that few imagined. NBA contracts in the 90s weren't the same as today's. Dell earned well, but not enough to guarantee the future of 3 children without careful planning. Sonia knew that a player's career could end with an injury, and she saw this happen to other families. That's when the opportunity arose. The principal of the school where Sonia worked as an educator called her for a private conversation on an October afternoon. "Sonia, you have a natural talent for educational administration," said Mrs. Henderson, adjusting her glasses. "There's a position opening in the Raleigh School District. It's a significant promotion with a salary that would double your current income." Sonia's heart raced. Doubling her income would mean total stability for the family. But then came the detail that would change everything. The position would require you to move to Raleigh and work longer hours. It would be a big step in your career. Sonia returned home that night with a tight chest. Dell was traveling with the team, and she was alone with the boys. Steph was in the backyard, shooting balls at an improvised basket that Dell had installed. Even at 280, only 9 years old, he already showed a passion for basketball that went beyond normal. "Mom, can you time my shots?" Steph shouted from the court. "Of course, my love," replied Sonia, grabbing the stopwatch from the kitchen. While watching Steph train with impressive determination for his age, an idea began to form in her mind. It wasn't about the promotion in Raleigh, it was about something much bigger. That same week, Sonia made a decision that would change not only her life, but the future of the entire Curry family. She refused the promotion, but didn't tell Dell the real reason. Instead, she began working extra shifts in night tutoring and educational consulting. The extra money had a specific destination: investing in Steph's development in ways no one could imagine. "Why are you working so many extra hours?" Dell asked during one of his rare nights at home. "I want to make sure the children have every possible opportunity," replied Sonia, choosing her words carefully. What Dell didn't know was that Sonia had begun obsessively researching youth athletic development. She spent hours at the local library, reading books about sports psychology, nutrition for young athletes, and training methodologies. She also began keeping a detailed diary of Steph's progress, noting each game, each technical improvement, each obstacle faced. But the biggest secret was yet to come. In December 1997, Sonia did something that would change everything. She discreetly sold a pearl necklace that had belonged to her grandmother, a family heirloom worth more than $5,000. The money was used to hire a personal trainer specialized in developing young athletes, something the family couldn't afford with the normal budget. "Steph is going to train with Coach Martinez twice a week," she announced during dinner. "How are we going to pay for this?" Del asked, frowning. "I got a special discount," lied Sonia, feeling the weight of the first of many half-truths she would tell in the coming years. As Steph began training with Coach Martinez, Sonia noticed changes not only in his skills, but in his confidence. The boy who once felt too small compared to other boys now began to believe in his potential. "Mom, Coach Martinez said I have something special," Steph commented after a training session, his eyes shining with hope. "I always knew that, my love," replied Sonia, hugging her son and hiding the tears that threatened to fall. On those silent nights of 1997, while Del slept after long trips, Sonia stayed awake planning the future. She had made the most important decision of her life: sacrifice her own professional ambitions to invest in her son's dream. But this would be just the beginning of a secret she would carry for almost 3 decades. What Sonia didn't imagine was how this decision would shape not only Steph's career, but the entire history of American basketball. And the weight of this secret would only grow over the years, especially when Steph began to face the greatest difficulties of his journey toward the NBA. The following years tested every fiber of Sonia Curry's determination. Between 1998 and 2005, while Steph grew from a determined boy to a teenager with increasingly bigger dreams, she continued her secret mission of paving her son's path, one sacrifice at a time. The family moved to Toronto when Del was hired by the Raptors in 1999. For Steph, then 11 years old, it was a difficult adaptation. Canadian children played hockey, not basketball, and he felt even more out of place due to his smaller-than-average stature. "Mom, I don't fit in here," Steph confessed one night, after returning from a school practice where he had once again been chosen last to form teams. Sonia sat on the bed next to her son, choosing her words carefully. "Steph, greatness isn't measured in centimeters. It's measured in the determination to overcome what seems impossible." What Steph didn't know was that his mother had spent hours on the phone that week, researching specialized trainers in Toronto. Using money from her extra jobs, she discreetly hired a sports nutritionist and a psychologist specialized in young athletes. Officially, they were school programs or community initiatives that Steph had won on merit. "How do you always get these special opportunities for Steph?" Del asked during dinner, watching his son eat following a specific diet that Sonia had implemented. "He naturally stands out. People notice his talent," replied Sonia, another half-truth that weighed on her heart. The truth was much more complex. Sonia had discreetly sold her wedding jewelry, one piece at a time, to finance Steph's athletic development. She also worked as a private tutor 3 nights a week after Del and the children slept, sending the money directly to a separate account dedicated to Project Steph, as she had begun to call it mentally. In 2001, when Steph was 13 years old and the family had returned to Charlotte, came the moment for an even more drastic decision. One of the best youth basketball trainers in the United States, Coach Thompson, was available to work with promising youngsters. The price? $15,000 per year. "It's impossible to pay for that," Del said when Sonia vaguely mentioned the possibility. That night, Sonia made the most difficult decision. Until then, she secretly sold the car Del had given her for their wedding anniversary and bought a used one with the money left over. When Del asked about the change, she invented a story about mechanical problems and the need to be more economical. "You've been acting strangely lately," Del commented, observing the worry on his wife's face. "I'm just focused on the children's future," replied Sonia, which was completely true, even if it wasn't the complete truth. The work with Coach Thompson transformed Steph. In 2003, at 15 years old, he finally began to stand out in regional competitions. But there were still skeptics. Coaches from important schools said he was too small and didn't have the physique for high-level basketball. That's when Sonia did something no one expected. She began attending all of Steph's games with a camera, recording his performances and sending the videos to college scouts. More than that, she studied each play, each movement, and wrote detailed technical analyses that accompanied the videos. "Mom, why are you always writing during games?" Steph asked after a particularly good match. "I'm recording your progress. One day you'll want to remember these moments," she replied, hiding the true purpose of her meticulous notes. Sonia's diary had become a document of hundreds of pages. She noted not only statistics, but observations about Steph's emotional development, his reactions to pressure, his leadership capacity. It was a professional report disguised as maternal affection. In 2004, Steph faced one of the biggest disappointments of his teenage life. He wasn't selected for the school's main team, staying on the junior team. That night, Sonia found him crying in the backyard. "Maybe they're right, Mom. Maybe I'm not good enough," Steph said between sobs. Sonia knelt beside her son. "Steph, I'm going to tell you something you'll understand better when you're older. Sometimes, the most important people in the world are underestimated precisely because they're different. You don't need to prove anything to anyone, except to yourself." What Steph didn't know was that his mother had spent the previous dawn writing letters to all the college coaches in the region, highlighting her son's potential with data and analyses that rivaled professional scouting reports. "How do you know so much about basketball?" Dell asked one night, finding Sonia studying NBA game videos on the computer. "I learned by watching you play all these years," she replied. Another half-truth that omitted the hundreds of hours she had dedicated to studying the sport. In 2005, when Steph finally began receiving attention from some smaller universities, Sonia felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. Her sacrifices were bearing fruit, but the biggest test was still to come. And the secret she carried continued growing, fed by each new difficult decision she needed to make alone. What weighed most on Sonia's heart wasn't the money spent or the career opportunities lost. It was the loneliness of carrying alone the weight of shaping her son's future, knowing he might never fully understand the extent of everything she had done behind the scenes. But for Sonia Curry, mother above all, every sacrifice was worth it when she saw the shine in Steph's eyes with each small victory achieved. The year 2006 brought the biggest test of Sonia Curry's determination. Steph, now 18 years old, was in his senior year of high school and needed to choose a university. It was the moment when all the secret sacrifices of the past 9 years would be put to the test. The reality, however, was disheartening. Duke, North Carolina, Virginia Tech, all the major universities Steph dreamed of attending rejected him. The coaches always gave the same explanation: too small, too thin, didn't have the necessary physique for elite college basketball. "Mom, maybe I should consider other options," Steph said one afternoon after receiving another rejection letter. "Maybe basketball really isn't for me." Sonia felt her heart break. At that moment, she made the riskiest decision of her life. That same night, after Dell and the children slept, she made a call that would change everything. "Coach McKillop, this is Sonia Curry, Steph's mother. I know it's late, but I need to talk to you about my son." Bob McKillop, coach at Davidson College, had shown genuine interest in Steph, but the university was small and didn't have the tradition of the major basketball powerhouses. "Mrs. Curry, we've already talked about Steph. He has an opportunity here, but he needs to be prepared to work hard." "Coach, can I be direct with you? I've invested the last 9 years of my life preparing my son for this moment. He's ready for any challenge." What Coach McKillop didn't know was the literal level of this statement. Sonia had documented every aspect of Steph's development in Say, a diary that now had more than 500 pages. She knew her son's statistics better than any professional coach. In that 2-hour conversation, Sonia did something extraordinary. She presented the coach with a complete analysis of Steph, his strengths, weaknesses, growth patterns, ability to adapt under pressure, natural leadership. It was a more detailed scouting report than many professional teams produced. "Mrs. Curry, where did you get all this information?" asked McKillop, impressed. "Coach, when you love someone as much as I love my son, you pay attention to every detail." Steph was accepted at Davidson, but the challenges were just beginning. The transition to college basketball was brutal. In the first month, Steph called home almost every night, questioning whether he had made the right choice. "Mom, the guys here are much bigger and stronger. Maybe I should have gone to a smaller university, focused on studies." Sonia knew this was the critical moment. It was time to reveal a bit more of her secrets. "Steph, I need to tell you something. During all these years, I didn't just invest in trainers and nutritionists. I invested in you in ways you can't imagine." In that conversation, Sonia told for the first time about the detailed diary she kept, about the technical analyses she wrote, about the hours she spent studying basketball to better understand how to support his development. "You did all of this?" Steph asked, genuinely surprised. "My love, I would do anything for you. But now it's time for you to discover what you're capable of on your own." What Sonia didn't tell was the total extent of her sacrifices. She didn't mention that she had refused 3 important promotions in her career to be completely available for the family. She didn't talk about the jewelry sold, the car traded, the extra jobs in the early morning hours. At Davidson, Steph began to flourish. In his second year, he was leading the team in scoring. In his third year, he was attracting national attention. And Sonia continued her mission behind the scenes. She drove 4 hours to Davidson for every home game, always carrying her camera and notebook. Other parents commented on her dedication, but no one imagined she was producing professional promotional material for her son. "Sonia is always filming and writing," commented another parent. "She seems more like a professional scout than a mother." If they only knew how close to the truth they were. In 2008, when Steph was in his senior year, Sonia made her final and riskiest investment. She used her personal savings, the money she had secretly saved over the years, to hire an agent specialized in the NBA draft to guide Steph through the process. "How did you pay for this?" Dell asked when he learned about the agent. "I got a special discount." Once again, the half-truth that had become her trademark. The truth was that Sonia had sold her last valuable jewelry, including the engagement ring Dell had given her 20 years before. She replaced it with a cheap replica, hoping he would never notice. During the 2008 NCAA tournament, when Steph led Davidson to the quarterfinals and became a national sensation, Sonia was in the stands with tears in her eyes. They weren't just tears of pride, but of relief. 11 years of secret sacrifices were finally paying off. "Did you know he would get this far?" a journalist asked her after the game. "I always knew," replied Sonia, and for the first time in years, it was a complete truth. When Steph declared for the NBA draft that year, Sonia knew the first phase of her secret mission was complete. But she also knew that the biggest secret was still to be revealed. And this secret weighed more and more on her heart with each of Steph's achievements. For how to explain to a son that his mother had sacrificed not only comfort and money, but her own professional identity, to ensure he had every possible chance to realize his dreams. This was a weight Sonia would carry alone for 16 more years, until the moment finally came to reveal the whole truth. March 2024. Steph Curry, at 36 years old, drove through the familiar streets of Charlotte with a strange feeling in his chest. His mother had called the previous week, saying she needed to talk to him about something important. Something about the past that she had never shared. "Are you sure everything's okay, Mom?" he had asked over the phone. "Everything's fine, my love. Actually, it's time for you to know some things I should have told you a long time ago." Now, parking in front of the house where he grew up, Steph felt a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. He had won 4 NBA titles, 2 MVP awards, had revolutionized basketball with his three-point shots. What secret from the past could be so important? Sonia opened the door before he even knocked. At 58 years old, she still had the same strong presence as always. But Steph noticed something different in her eyes, a vulnerability he had rarely seen. "Hi, Mom," he said, hugging her affectionately. "Hi, my love. Come in. I made your favorite breakfast." They sat in the living room, the same one where Steph had spent countless hours as a child, dreaming about his basketball career. Sonia held an old box in her hands, her fingers trembling slightly. "Steph, do you remember when you started training with Coach Martinez when you were 9 years old?" "Of course, Mom. You said you got a special discount for me." Sonia took a deep breath. "I lied to you. There was no discount. I paid the full price." Steph frowned, confused. "But how? Dad always said we didn't have money for expensive training." "Because I didn't tell your father how I got the money." Sonia opened the box, revealing an old pearl necklace, yellowed by time. "This necklace belonged to my grandmother. It was worth more than $5,000 in 1997. I sold a replica of it to pay for your first specialized training." Steph carefully took the necklace, his eyes widening. "Mom, you sold your family jewelry for me?" "Steph, that was just the beginning." During the next hour, Sonia revealed 27 years of secrets. She told about the extra jobs in the early morning hours, about the refused promotions, about each piece of jewelry sold discreetly. She showed the diary of more than 600 pages where she documented each game, each progress, each obstacle Steph faced. "Mom, you did technical analyses of my game since I was 9 years old?" Steph asked, flipping through the detailed pages. "I learned everything about basketball to be able to support you in the best way. I studied sports nutrition, athletic psychology, training methodologies. I became a specialist in your development. But the most impactful revelation was still to come. Steph, do you remember the engagement ring your father gave me?" "Of course. You always wore it." Sonia showed her left hand, where a simple ring shone. "This is a $50 replica. I sold the original in 2008 to help pay for the agent who guided you in the NBA draft." Steph felt tears spring to his eyes. "Mom, you sold your engagement ring." "My love, that ring was just metal and stone. My real commitment was always to you and your brothers, to your dreams." Steph stood up abruptly, walking to the window. His mother's words echoed in his mind, recontextualizing every memory of his childhood and adolescence. All the times she had been present at his games, all the motivational conversations, all the unconditional support. Everything had been sustained by sacrifices he had never imagined. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" he asked, still with his back to her. "Because a mother doesn't do these things expecting recognition, Steph. She does them out of love. And because you had to believe you were achieving everything on your own merit." Steph turned around, tears flowing freely down his face. "But I didn't achieve it alone, Mom. Nothing I accomplished was alone." Sonia stood up and walked to her son. "You did achieve it, my love. I just gave you the tools, the talent, the determination, the perseverance. All of that came from you. Mom, I'll never be able to thank you enough. You've already thanked me every day, just by being the man you became." Steph hugged his mother, feeling the weight of 27 years of silent sacrifices. At that moment, he understood that his career wasn't just his. It was the result of a maternal dedication that went far beyond what he had imagined. "Mom, there's something I need to do." "What is it, my love?" "I need to tell this story to the world. People need to know what you did. I need to honor your sacrifices publicly." Sonia smiled, wiping tears from her own eyes. "If you think it can help other families, then tell it. But know that I would do it all again, without hesitation." That afternoon, mother and son spent hours looking at old photos, revisiting memories with a new perspective. Steph finally understood that his journey to becoming one of the greatest basketball players of all time had been a partnership, even though he didn't know it. "You know what moves me most, Mom?" Steph said, while they flipped through the detailed diary Sonia had kept. "What, my love?" "You always believed in me more than I believed in myself. When everyone said I was too small, you saw something no one else saw. I saw my son. And a mother always sees the complete potential of her child, even when the world can't see it." When Steph finally left the house that night, he carried with him not only the knowledge of his mother's sacrifices, but a deep understanding of the meaning of unconditional love. He had entered that house as a successful basketball player. He left as a son who finally understood the true size of his mother's heart. And Sonia Curry, after 27 years keeping her secrets, could finally sleep in peace, knowing she had fulfilled her mission as a mother, raising a son who not only achieved his dreams, but who understood the value of sacrifices made out of love. The story Steph would share with the world in the following days would touch millions of hearts, reminding everyone that behind every great achievement, there's always someone who believed first, who sacrificed more, and who loved unconditionally. Because sometimes, the greatest heroes are those who work in silence, behind the scenes, moved only by the pure love of seeing those they love fly higher than they ever dreamed possible.